lot of grocery pain points that when we started, we thought existed in the market. However, after we started, we've sort of realized that some of our original assumptions were maybe not spot on. And what we were trying to solve for was actually a much smaller piece of the overall puzzle. Some of the biggest pain points that we have come to know from consumers. The biggest one is that there is the demand in the grocery segment is actually much greater than the supply. The consumer's wallet is actually not topped out because they have made their grocery purchase for the week, for the month. It is primarily due to supply. If you create enough supply, people will actually spend more on grocery in India than they currently do. A very simple case in point is a lot of us don't actually eat fruit because sort of buying fresh fruit, since we don't have very good refrigeration, is actually a chore every sort of 3 or 4 days that you actually have to make a trip to do it. Since we've started delivering fruits to consumers, we've actually seen per user consumption of fruits go up every month, right? Which indicates that people will buy if they had more access to some of these things. And assortment is sort of another big factor. Right now, there is one primary distribution channel in grocery, which is your small stores, and the number of SKUs that are available at the store that's in your building or sort of in your locality is at max 1,000 SKUs, which basically sort of limits the choice for consumers. So you still buy things that you absolutely need, but a lot of the discovery of new products, a lot of the ability of consumers, that is basically something that is very crucial in the Western markets, that you go to a market and you have a lot of choice and you can actually pick up new products and try new things and try new flavors. That really doesn't exist in the Indian market. So for a product to actually break through and get to the consumer, it's actually very hard because the shelf space is already taken by established products that are already very well set in the consumer's mindset. And I think it limits choice for the consumer on the other side. We've seen that happen with organics, we've seen that happen with exotic fruits and vegetables, we've seen that happen with a lot of categories of food, especially, that consumers would be very happy to try and probably adopt. However, the fact that they don't have access to that assortment makes their life a lot more tougher. So, actually, our initial thesis of starting the business was based on convenience. It was entirely based on people do not like to spend their Saturdays and Sundays going to the supermarket to buy grocery. If you're actually delivering grocery to their doorstep, and not just grocery, we wanted to focus on pharmacies, we wanted to focus on bakery, pretty much everything that is a trip to the local market and not a particularly pleasant experience, right? Going to a mall in India is still considered an outing, but going to a supermarket is probably not in the same league of enjoyment as maybe going to a mall is. So we actually thought that if we took out that trip, we will have enough users who would be willing to sort of pay for the service and who would be willing to buy online, and that the behavioral switch would be much easier. However, convenience turned out to be a much smaller part of why consumers actually come and purchase with Grofers, right? However, I think just having that thought that convenience would drive the market was enough to get us started. We actually thought we were onto something, and we were right in hindsight, but I think more by luck rather than by design. So when we had started, there were very few comparables in the US. However, in the first year that we were functioning, a lot of the companies in US had started getting traction, not in exactly the similar space that we were in, but adjacent spaces. So Instacart was coming up, Postmates was coming up, and then one of the very interesting things was we were seeing a lot of similarity between the Indian and Chinese market, and we were seeing a lot of players in a similar or adjacent spaces coming up in China as well, right? And this was all sort of around home delivery of products, home delivery on sort of everyday consumer products. And everybody had a different take on it because the supply chain in every country was different. China had a different problem with the supply chain. They were trying to solve for something different. We were trying to solve for something different. But we were definitely always looking at what is Instacart up to, what is Postmates up to, what is Be Quick up to, what is Dada up to in China. So we were always sort of trying to compare what we were doing versus what they were doing. We did not have the luxury of actually having a well-established player in any of the markets to sort of look at, right? So we were sort of figuring it out at the same time as most of these guys were actually also figuring it out.